I got a few questions for you. A few things you didn't answer. Peter, what make and model turbines are you proposing here, and how tall are they, and how big is the rotor?
Okay, yeah, I'll stand right here. Right now, we're planning our project that's based on a Vestas turbine, manufactured by Vestas, and the size of that turbine would be a 1.8 megawatt turbine, and that comes on a 95-meter tower, so the total structure height would be about 480 feet.
How big is the rotor? Is that the 320 foot rotor?
The rotor is about 330 feet in total, yeah, the diameter.
Okay. You said industry standard setbacks. You're a German company. What are the setbacks in Germany and lightly populated rural areas?
The setbacks in Germany is a good question. Industry standard, I'm referring to U.S. industry standards. German style of settlement, this is true for other European countries as well, tends to be much more clustered in villages. In fact, if for anyone who's traveled to European countries, it's much different than here, where we have homes, farmsteads across every section. So the setbacks in Germany and other European countries do tend to be higher than what U.S. standards are, and that's a mere consequence of the style of settlement over there.
So how big is it?
German stand. I actually don't know the answer to that. We don't. The American team that's here doesn't develop in Germany.
I'll help you out. It's 4,900 feet. It's nearly 5,000 feet in Germany. And I've had this discussion with James before. The argument that you propose is that because there's so few people in the rural area, they need bigger setbacks. Which would mean conversely, you need very small setbacks when there's a lot of people around, which doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't mean to combat it. We've been hearing these arguments for a long time. In the interest of making sure that there's some balance here, I'd like to share at least a little bit of my concerns. I'm not going to go on a long monologue. Your first development is in Flatwater in Nebraska, correct? And you've already sold that development to Gallup Power, correct, while it's being constructed. Do you intend to sell this one, and do you have a buyer in mind?
You're correct. We have sold our Flatwater wind farm, which is the 60-megawatt Nebraska project that I referenced earlier. We are participating in the construction of that project through the operation date. We fully developed that. In the second part of your question, it is not UV's intent to sell projects prior to construction, although that does happen in the industry. UV is a full-service developer, which means we take ownership stake in projects, or we intend to anyway, and carry the project through operation.
If we adopt a 1,000-foot setback and a 55 decibel noise limit, which you propose as being one of the industry standards, and seeing as I'm a member of the Planning Commission and we've raised our hands and sworn an oath to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the residents of this township, are you tonight willing to guarantee these people tonight that if that the people's health, safety, and welfare and property value will not be diminished in any way by noise, ice throw, flicker, blade glint, and other stigma effects associated with these turbines at a 1,000-foot setback and a 55 decibel noise limit? And if these setbacks and noise limits prove inadequate, are you willing to compensate people financially for the loss of those things which they presently enjoy? Because I think you understand, our existing ambient noise is much lower than 50 or 55 decibels.
That was a multi-part question. I'll do my best. I am not in a position to guarantee anything tonight. In fact, I think it would be imprudent for me to do so. What I would propose is that we go forward with common practices in the industry, which would be a lot of studies, and we would issue those studies for public review and comment to the jurisdiction, which in this case in Riga Township would be the Planning Commission. And the Planning Commission, with us, will review our documentation to make sure that the public safety is adequately protected. And at that point, we can make a decision about that.
Some of you may not be aware, just yesterday, John Deere, who's the other developer working in the township, has sold their interest in their wind energy division to Exelon Corporation. There's a flyer floating around somewhere that talks about that. And that got me thinking about this, and it's a discussion I've had with James earlier this year. Boone Pickens left the energy sector. Now, yesterday, John Deere sold its wind energy unit to Exelon for $900 million. According to Associated Press, they invested $1 billion to create the business. In other words, they appear to have gotten out with a $100 million loss. After the deal was announced, Deere's stock price went up and Exelon's went down. Cap and trade appears to be dead. Harry Reid dropped the proposed national RPS this summer. Republicans, no friends to green energy, appear to be poised to make historic gains in a couple months, placing future tax incentives for green energy in serious doubt. The validity of man-made global warming has been seriously crippled in the past year. If Boone Pickens no longer likes wind and JD is willing to get out of wind at a loss, why should our township be asked to make what appears to be an ever riskier investment?
The energy industry right now, broadly speaking, not just wind energy, happens to be going through a low point, and that really is a consequence of the recession and energy prices, energy demand, which is way down coming out of the recession, especially from the industrial sector, and that has driven prices down. It's created a bit of a maybe not a frenzy, but at least some action in the industry whereby many developers are choosing to get out. And I'm happy to say that that is not the case with UE. In fact, we're expanding our portfolio right now because we believe in the wind energy industry and we believe that there's no direction to go for it than up in the U.S. And coming to your last point there, I think perhaps what you may be alluding to is the possibility that a company would go bankrupt and the residents in the local community would be left with statues, large 480-foot statues. There are many ways that in this case, Riga Township and other jurisdictions can protect themselves from that. And a common way of doing so is requiring a financial assurance that will guarantee the commissioning of the facilities on the chance that they are no longer operational. That is becoming more and more standard in the industry, and it's certainly something that we've worked with in other states, including Ohio, where we will have to do the same thing.
Permit me one more? One last question?
Absolutely.
You and your partners have tried to present yourselves as intending to be good neighbors and citizens working in our township. And you've been a pleasure to work with. Everybody's been very amiable, and I appreciate that. But this has caught my attention because somebody presented me one of your leases. In section 10.14 of your lease, it says under the section called Compliance with Laws, developer agrees to comply in all material respects with valid laws applicable to the wind facilities on the premises. Developer shall have the right, in its sole discretion and at its sole expense, in its name, meaning yours, or the owner's name, the person who owns the property, to contest the validity or applicability to the premises or wind facilities of any law, ordinance, statute, order, regulation, property assessment, or the like, made by any governmental agency or entity. Developer shall control any such contest, and owner shall cooperate with developer in every reasonable way in such contest at no out-of-pocket expense to owner. If I understand this correctly, your company, knowing full well in advance that our existing ordinance limited virtually all structures in our ag district to 40 feet in height, nevertheless proceeded to lease thousands of acres of our ground and then purchased from our residents the right to bring litigation against their own township in their names if the township doesn't adopt an ordinance that suits your needs as a developer. Does this meet your definition of the word neighborliness?
There's no question that we do like to think of ourselves as good neighbors. The project that we're proposing here tonight has a lifespan of 20 years. If we're not good neighbors, we're going to get a lot of angry phone calls, and that's not good for our business. That's not good for anyone. The intent of that clause in our lease agreement is not to circumvent any applicable zoning ordinance. In fact, we fully intend to cooperate with the Planning Commission in